One spring day, when Sean was working in his garden and listening to the radio, he heard that his country was going to war with another country on the other side of the world. Sean had learned a lot about war at school, and he was very sad to hear this news. As the weeks and months went on, there was more and more talk about the war, on the radio, on the television, at school, even at the dinner table in his home. Sean did not like hearing about the war. He stopped listening to the radio while he was working in the garden. He even stopped watching television and reading the newspaper, but he couldn't get away from the war. One day he got a notice in the mail that said he would have to go into the army. He knew that this meant that he might have to fight in the war. Sean did not want to fight anyone. He didn't want anything to do with war. The next week he had to report to the army office. He told the officer that he didn't want to fight in a war. "I will go into your army," he said, "but I will not make war. I will not do anything that will hurt other people."
"But, young man, we are in a war," said the officer. "Sometimes you have to do those things."
"I'm sorry, sir," said Sean, "but I can't. I will go into the army, but I will make gardens instead of war."
"What?" cried the army officer. "Did you say you want to make gardens?"
"Yes, that's what I said," replied Sean. "I will be happy to make gardens anywhere that you want me to." The army officer turned red in his face.
"Why, that's outrageous," he said. "Who ever heard of an army that makes gardens?"
"Just because we never heard of it doesn't mean it can't be," said Sean. He remembered what his grandmother had told him about war many years before. "Isn't war all about people not having the things they need and want?" he asked. "If everyone had a beautiful garden full of delicious things to eat, well, what more could they want? Of course, we could help them build houses, too, if they need them. But I think we should make the gardens first. That way everyone will have enough to eat while they're building the houses." The officer did not know what to say.
"I'm going to talk to my commanding officer about this," he finally said. "I'm sure he'll have something to say about the idea of an army that makes gardens. Come back in 1 week."
When Sean came back the next week, there were 2 army officers waiting to talk to him.
"Look here, Sean," said the new officer in a very gruff voice. "You will go into the army and you will do whatever we tell you to do. Do you understand?"
Sean tried to talk to them about making gardens, but they would not listen. They told him to report for his training in 1 month. Sean was disappointed that the officers would not listen about the gardens, but he had a plan. His mom and dad were sad. They did not want Sean to go to war. When he went to board the train that would take him to the training camp, his whole family was there to say goodbye. His mom and dad and his brother Zach, his aunts and uncles, and his grandma and grandpa. Sean kissed them all goodbye. "Don't be sad," he told them. "I have a plan. Pretty soon there won't be any more wars." The training camp was not so bad. Sean liked the exercises and being with the other young men. Some of them did not want to go to war either. They would all talk about the towns that they had come from, their families and friends and homes. Sean loved to talk about his gardens, and before he knew it, he was once again being called Sean the Veggie Man. When training camp was over, Sean and the other men flew across the ocean in a giant jet plane. They landed in a country called No More Sorrow. It looked very different from home. The houses were small and very close together. The trees and flowers that grew there looked different from what Sean was used to. Even the people looked different and dressed different. They looked kind of sad, but Sean thought they were beautiful. "Sir, why are we here?" Sean asked his commanding officer.
"The people of this country have been fighting with each other for a long time. They are hungry. They don't have enough to eat. All the forests where they used to get their food have been cut down," explained the officer. "Some of them want to be our friends, and some of them want to be our enemies. We have to make sure that the ones who want to be our enemies do not win the war."
"Why don't we just make friends with the ones who want to be our enemies?" asked Sean.
"Young man, it's not that simple," replied the officer. "Dismissed."
Sean did not understand. On the first day in this new land, each of the soldiers were given a kind of gun called a rifle. Sean did not want anything to do with that gun. He wished he had a shovel or a rake instead. Every morning when he got ready to report for duty, he would strap on his rifle, and then he would put some packages of seeds in his pocket, just in case. Sean's job was to patrol the village of Soon-to-be-Glad. As he walked around the village, he noticed that there were no vegetable gardens, and he wondered why. One day, while he was patrolling, he saw a group of little children playing in the dirt with their pails and shovels, just like children did in his own country. He walked over to them and said hello. They didn't understand him because they spoke another language, and when they saw the rifle strapped to Sean's back, they were frightened. Sean smiled at the children and crouched down so that he was not so much taller than them. He started playing in the dirt with them, and pretty soon they realized that he was a friend. After a while, Sean began gathering some rocks to make a wall. He motioned for the children to help him, and they did. Soon they had made a square of 4 rock walls. Then Sean took one of the pails and started filling the square with dirt. The children did the same, laughing and singing as they filled the rock walls to the top with dirt.